The big point that everyone's talking about is this home advantage for Leinster, and obviously the finals there as well. What they're going to do? Going to move it down to Munster or somewhere? Of course, they're not going to do it. It is what it is. It's what Leinster have always had the ability to do, and the game was set up to be unbelievable. And we can get into the depths of the game. What do you mean the TMO didn't see it because it's an Irish TV producer that didn't show him the replay of Andrew Porter's tackle at a crucial time when it should have been a yellow card?
What do you mean that Wayne Barnes was literally a millimetre away from it and didn't see it? Andrew, I'm staying positive. I'm a big fan of Andrew Porter and I want him to come on. I want Andrew Porter to come on the podcast after they win the final, but I'm not sure. I don't know how many impressions it got on Twitter, but I know it was in the high hundreds of thousands, Andrew, that you posted the video of Andrew Porter. I thought it was legal. I'll be honest. I want to get him on.
It ain't legal.
Mate, I want to get him on. It was legal. Can you just say it was legal just once so we can just cut that up and I can send it to him?
No, I can't. It was not legal. And listen, this is nothing against Andrew Porter. He made an error, right? But the fact is, Wayne Barnes was a millimetre from it, and he has a look at it, plays on. And I think this is the whole issue. When you then go on to score a try, they kind of forget those things, don't they? And you can see Hugo Moller, who was my old coach at Brive, he's going mad on the touchline. And, getting into the depths of the game, which we will. Leinster are outstanding. Conan obviously was brilliant in the back row. But that moment, and there's a few things that went against Toulouse themselves, their errors, their discipline, their decision to go a 6-2 bench. You've got the best, and I tweeted about it. You've got a 6-2 bench, and after 15 minutes, you've got the best player, or one of the second best player in the world in Anton Dupont, moving from 9 to 10. And yes, he can play that, but we're talking the top level of semi-finals.
So yeah, I know. So just go back to that and then talk about it. So 6-2, a lot of teams will go 6-2 if they think there's going to be a power game up front and your forward's going to run out of puff. I saw you tweet that and I was like, but hindsight's a great thing. So have you got a reason why you thought a 6-2 instead of a 5-3, or just because of hindsight and seeing Dupont having to be moved?
Yeah, no, I never agree with the 6-2 bench. And the reason being is, what you want, and I don't think they probably should be allowed it, because we're talking about, and we spoke to Ben Youngs on here recently, he said you're trying to find fatigue in players, and with a 6-2 bench, you can bring on effectively near enough another pack of forwards, so you're not going to find fatigue on the field. And that's one of my things about the game and how it's refereed and how we're playing it. There isn't often space because players aren't fatigued, so that's why we continually see some of these big hits. So, when you're looking at a 5, you should have a 5-3 bench, especially in key positions where you've bought, and the knock-on effect of it, your centre's gone down, right? So you bring a different scrum half on, you move Dupont from 9 to 10, you move Untermack from 10 to 12, and you move Peter Aki from 12 to 13. You've moved effectively 4 players' positions with one injury. And I've never agreed in a 6-2 split at all, because one of them has to be able to cover scrum half, because it's such a specialist position. And then, I was just an advocate because I was always on the bench. You better have 5-3 lads, so there's an extra space for me, effectively. But what it's done in a semi-final at that level. And Dupont's a world-class player, and he's brilliant when he plays 10 as well. But you've affected the team so much with one substitution and one injury that you've then got 4 players playing in different positions to where they started the game. And you've got the best player in the world, or one of the best players in the world, not in his main position where he can be the ultimate threat at the top tier of international rugby, and it's had a massive effect on them as a team. So they got things wrong themselves, but I don't think they were helped. And what are your thoughts on the second yellow, Jim? I know people look at it and go, he used his head, but Josh van der Fleer's gone into a dead ruck. What's he doing? Then he's gone in twice for 2 nibbles. The ball is miles away at the back of the caterpillar, and Netty's just stood there like a
rhino.
He is, but he stood there like it's an open shot, come and have a go at me. So he's obviously just fucking braced himself, and he's flicked his head up a bit, but I don't know. I think that should have been a rugby incident. Josh, you shouldn't have been doing that yourself, going in chest up. And, I think that's where Toulouse feel a bit hard done by as well.
But not to be different to you, but genuinely, I've been in that position many times. And not that I can read Netty's mind, but it's a pretty aggressive act, isn't it? You can see Josh van der Fleer coming in and people will be like, well, what's he meant to do? He's obviously meant to brace himself, but it was the action. He steps forward with his shoulder and bangs his head into him. Genuinely, when I saw it, and this isn't meant to be divisive or to cause a stir or cause an issue, If he would have got red carded for that, I wouldn't have been overly surprised, which is completely the opposite of what you're saying. Josh van der Fleer hasn't done anything wrong in terms of, all right, the ball might be dead, it might be a long ruck, he might have no chance of getting the ball back. He's gone in with his closed arms. But what can Netai do? I'm not too sure, but the movement was pretty aggressive. So I've seen a lot less than that be red carded, in my opinion. So I think a yellow card was pretty fair, I think.
Yeah. What do you mean Josh van der Fleer dived, though, and made a meal out of it?
Oh, goody.
Andrew, I did put him in my World 15. I saw what was coming, and we have to be joined up on these things. I knew he was going to take a dive this week. I don't think he dived that bad, did he?
No, he didn't. He didn't. But he made it's one of them. You're looking at it. I hope he's looking back at that going, the way I've gone to the deck's pretty embarrassing. Because the turnaround fact is Nettie gets sin-binned. Next thing you know, Josh van der Fleer scoring a try from the penalty that gets kicked to the line out that they drive over. So small margins. It was a real interesting game at that point. I think they got it back to 27-17, 10 points in it. And Toulouse were starting to get a bit of momentum, and then boom, your prop gets yellow carded for something like that. And then Leinster just pull away completely, and it's game over.
So that was the big turning point for you?
Well, there was two big turning points. Well, three big turning points, really. Ramos's yellow card, and I'll come on to another yellow card later in the game. You talk about the frustrations in the game. I 100% believe Thomas Ramos, his yellow card is right. It was the right decision by Wayne Barnes. What happens then, a minute before that, or a couple of minutes before that, Anton Dupont's moved from scrum half to fly half, so he's hardly had an impact on the game for the next 15 minutes. And with Ramos getting sin-binned, Jamison Gibson Park finds the blind side a few times. They score a couple of tries, and the game at that point you think is pretty much gone for them. So the Ramos yellow card is 100% right. The decision to go a 6-2 split, which affected what happened. Hindsight, you're looking at it, you don't want Anton Dupont going to 10 in a European semi-final. Yes, he can do it in a league game, and people have come up with that example to me, but it's a Heineken Cup semi-final, right, against the best team, Leinster, generationally, that we've seen coming out of Ireland. So you can't have your best player playing out of position, plus your second best player in Untermack playing out of position, plus probably your third best player as well in Peter Aki then moving as well. But their discipline let them down. And just remind ourselves of what I've said about Thomas Ramos's yellow card, because another Frenchman had a shocker later on. My old mate Mathieu Reynal in a different game for a very similar incident. Leinster were great. Jamison Gibson Park, phenomenal at scrum half. And when you look at the difference between him and then the moving Anton Dupont had no impact on the game at all because he had to get moved to 10 early on. And, Jamison Gibson Park was on fire.
Talking of 10s, Ross Byrne, cometh the man, cometh the hour. I've been waiting to say that all show. But everyone was talking about Johnny Sexton a few weeks back. It's now Ross Byrne. He's now taken that jersey by the scruff of the neck, no pun intended. I thought he was brilliant at the weekend, ball in hand, managing the players around him, kicking off the tee. You could see the energy, the confidence, barking at the players. I thought he was brilliant as well. So it's one of them, like Goody's gone through the archives of what Toulouse could have, should have, would have done. We've been all over Leinster this year saying about them being unplayable, how well Ireland have played, Ireland-France analogy in the lead up to the game with the bulk of the Ireland squad in Leinster, a load of the players playing for France in Toulouse. And I don't, it was a really hard one because people are going to talk about the final. Like, what do you think? What do we get from that? Well, there was a number of reasons. Both teams, it's really hard to judge because I think the two very best teams are in the final, and it is going to be hard to call. But Leinster, at times during that game, they were unplayable. Again, you look at the quality that they've got, and you look how well Conan played at 8. Caleb Doris was quiet as he's ever been, really. And it doesn't matter because you've got a quality like Jack Conan, Josh van der Fleer back in, James Ryan, who I left out of the World 15. I should have put him in Will Skelton in. Again, hindsight, I didn't last week. And Dan Sheehan again, who for me is the informed hooker in the world right now.
Oh, good.
Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. When I was with him a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't believe how tall he was, which is a weird thing to say, but as a hooker, really, really tall. And you think for the final, they've got Ronan Kelleher coming back. They're going to have Robbie Henshaw as well, back in the mix. Him and Ringrose, 12-13. James Lowe, is he going to make it back? Hugo Keenan was fairly quiet at 15 as well at the weekend compared to how he has been. Jimmy O'Brien, friend of the show. Like, they're just quality on quality. And again, I'll say, I think when they're firing on all cylinders and they win that physical battle, which is the big question mark, whether or not they can do that over La Rochelle, they're unplayable.
Well, it's a few weeks away, but after seeing what you've seen from the weekend, have you got any indication or insight into who you think will win this final?
It's hard, isn't it? Because La Rochelle are champions. They're playing a great brand of rugby. There's the whole underlying story of Rog, a Munster boy, coming up against Leinster and, in Dublin. And a lot of things will get written about that. The power game of La Rochelle. I think everyone thought Leinster were just going to cruise to victory last year in the final and probably didn't pay La Rochelle enough respect of what they can do. But it's so hard to look past Leinster in Dublin. But as people have said, everyone talks up this Leinster team. And I remember, I think it was Richard Wigglesworth said it. Everyone talks up this Leinster team. They are a great outfit, but they've only won it once in 10 years. And they are, year on year, people's favourites. So they've got some big sort of questions to answer themselves. And, it's hard to look past them in Dublin. When the writing's on the wall for most teams, when Leinster can play all their games at the stadium that they're going to play the final at if they wanted to and win the tournament there. So it's hard to look past Leinster for me. Although La Rochelle, they shocked them last year. They can do it again.
And the year before. You think about what La Rochelle did to them in the semi-final the year before, that physicality. And that was the shift, wasn't it, for Leinster and for Ireland, that a lot of them spoke about, is the power game. Arguably, you could say Jacques Nienaber coming in, that well, in fact, speaking to Leo Cullen personally, he's referenced that around the physicality that South Africa play with. Maybe that's an added layer that Leinster might need. And that is the big question mark. We know Leinster play a brilliant brand of rugby when they're on the front foot. When I look at that La Rochelle team, I look at the scrum, the dominance that they had. And yes, without being horrible, you look at where Exeter and what they're going through. It was only Exeter. Leinster are going to be a very different outfit. But when they've got players like Will Skelton, Willie Antonio, Gregory Aldreet, that power game that they can play, but also layered on top of that, the tactics that someone like Ronan O'Gara and that kind of multicultural influence that they have. This isn't me trying to stereotype the French. The way that Toulouse played and the whole stuff around Dupont going off was a very French mindset. Coach at the side of the pitch, all emotionally charged, all hands up in the air, all bravado. When really, if he would have took a step back and looked at it properly, like Goody said, you're playing against one of the best teams in the world. Like, why are you going to move 4 players out of position just to service one injury? And La Rochelle are different with Ronan O'Gara at the helm and that influence that they've got. We got a bit of time. Let's sit on it and wait. But I think, pause there, no answer.
Pod.
Rugby pod.